Okay, so just reading the comments. Awesome. I like that. Very useful. Excellent. I love it when people can use these tutorials. That's awesome. Just love liking these comments. That's great. Looking good. Oh, yeah. Good point. I completely forgot about the beam. I'll tell you what, let's sort that out now. So a couple of weeks ago, I uploaded this video on how to make your own holographic effect. And that video did really very well. A lot of people commented on how they were able to recreate that effect. So if you've been able to do that, please do drop a link to your work. I find ArtStation is pretty good for uploading stuff. There's some awesome stuff on ArtStation. You can find me there. My link is in the description below. But one person did point out that although we focused a lot on the hologram, we didn't look at the hologram beam. I kind of just put that in there at the end as a pretty cool effect. So in hindsight, yes, I should have spent a bit more time just explaining how that was made. So that's really the purpose of this video today. So let's go back to the Blender session, and as you can see, we're operating on Blender 3.3.0, its latest Blender as of today. If you've got an earlier version of Blender, you can use this tutorial because it is purely shading nodes. There's nothing complex in there. You're not needing anything particularly advanced in there. So you should be able to. So if you're more comfortable with an earlier version, yeah, fine. If not, it might be best just to download that. It's free from blender.org. So let's get on with it. So the first thing we're going to do, and if you're not new to the channel, then you know I don't like doing this. I don't like deleting the original default cube. I like doing stuff with the default cube just to prove that it has a use. It has a use. You don't need to kill it. But, well, today we're going to get rid of it and we're going to replace it with a cone. Cones are not nearly used as much as they should be. So we're just going to modify some of these numbers. This is just an example, so you can set that as much as you like or as little as you like. That just looks nice. We just want a kind of nice beamy effect. See there in the bottom corner we actually have some notes, keystrokes being shown. So if you can follow them, great. If not, don't worry, but please feel free to chuckle at my spelling errors, for I make many. Now, we're in edit mode, and we want the top and the bottom, and I think it's control. No, it's not control. You can see there it's picked up that one. I always forget which one it is. Shift and shift. There you go. That's more like it. And then delete, and you just want to wipe out those faces. So now we've kind of got this hollow cone going on here, or trapezoid going on. And then what we want to do is, let's give this a name first. Let's call it Hollow Beam. Hollow Beam. There you go. Hollow Beam. And then straight into materials. I prefer to go into object mode first and then into materials. Want a new one? We're going to call this Hollow Beam as well. Okie dokie. So we're going to go straight in. Now, let's zoom in as best we can so you can see. I mean, this is the important bit. So if you can see this, great. If you're struggling to see it, my mouse is declaring war on me, I'm sure of it. If you can see this, great. If not, let me know. There are things we can do to increase the size of text. I know on a mobile phone, if you're probably watching this on a mobile phone, you might struggle to see some of this. I do also find that for whatever reason, YouTube likes to downgrade the resolution on some videos. I've seen it a few times on mine, and it makes all this very grainy. So if you're struggling to see this, have a look at your settings and just tune it up on the resolution as high as you can go. And that should help you out a little bit. So we're in Shaded tab now, and we want to get rid of that principled PDF. What we're going to do is we're going to create a hollow effect, but with a gradient. So it's going to be very similar to what we did in the last video. If you don't have a chance to see that, then feel free to jump off and have a look at that and then come back to this and see how we do the next bit. But mix shader first. We want to go into here. I want an emission shader in here. I'm going to leave the other shader empty for now because I want to show you what this actually does. Then what we want is a Voronoi texture. So that can go into there, and that should immediately, there you go, populate with a bit of a pan, and that's very nice. It's not very holographic. So before we go any further, just make sure you've got Node Wrangler switched on. To do that, you go to Edit Preferences. You want to go into Add-ons. And in this corner here, you want to go Node. Mine's switched on because I've used it a few times. But if you've just downloaded Blender for whatever reason, or just updated it even, you'll probably find it switched off. And I don't know why Blender does it. They just kind of leave this turned off in default. It's really much easier just to have it switched on. So turn the Node Wrangler on, and then it's Control-T, and that turns on your mapping. Now we want to switch it from generated to object. Changes it ever so slightly, and then what we want to do is adjust this. So there's a couple of things we could do. Now, one approach, let's just get this right, yeah. You can, one effect, which I think is really cool, is you can have it so it's this kind of spirally effect, and that's quite cool. What you want as well is a color ramp, and plant it in the middle. And then what you can do is you use this color ramp and it just hides stuff. So you get these nice rings. And these rings can be animatable. You can change bits. Actually, if I make that 4D, there we go. You can animate it. So you could have a hollow effect like that. In fact, let's give this a bit of color. Let's add some detail to this now whilst we're here. Let's see, 50 should do it. Now let's turn some other bits on so it nice and glows. There we go. Let's just turn these on. I'll just turn these on by default. It makes it look nice. So you could have a hollow effect that does that, which is one option. You can do it that way. Or you can have something that's a bit more grainy. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on the grainy one because I think this one looks nicer for a hollow effect. But it's up to you. If you wanted to, you could just do that as well. Could even mix them two together, actually, if you wanted to. It's entirely up to you. Now what we want to do is plug something else into here. Transparency. Because if you've got an object in here, so this beam will go around your holographic object. If you just put your holographic object in there, you won't see the holographic object. So we need a transparency to plant into there. And then in your setup, let's see, it's alpha blend works best in my experience. There we go. So you can kind of see through it. In fact, let's take a moment, go into the background, turn the background to 0, and you know, let's just render it just to very quickly show you what's going on there. Yeah, so that's kind of your grainy effect. So that's all well and good. You can play around with these numbers. In fact, if you're going for the grainy effect, it's probably best to do that. You don't. What we're going to do is we're going to add our time effect on here, and if you just change that. In fact, what we're going to do something a bit more clever than just putting a time, a keyframe in. We're going to add a noise to that, so we'll come back to that later. And let's just, whilst we're here, let's just turn it down because it's a bit too busy. So right down. That's starting to look good. You can manipulate this afterwards. Let's see. So what we want to do next is that's all very well and good, but when you look at holograms on movies, they glow from an emitter and then they phase out, and this is very constant. So we don't really want that. We want a mix shader, and we want to tell it that basically we want it strong down here and we want it weaker at the top. So because we're using these shaders a lot, I'm going to move these to the middle. And what we'll do is this bottom bit here, so you just pick it out. That is all this kind of grainy effect. And in fact, let's just zoom in. So if you're taking notes, that's your layout. Doesn't really matter what your numbers are at this point. This is perhaps the most important aspect of this tutorial. Well, not necessarily this tutorial, but this part of the shader, because that controls just how grainy that actually is. So you want that kind of a bit low, right about there. As I say, play with it afterwards. But that's fairly important. But what we want to do now, as I say, is we want to gradient it. So we're going to go for I'll search gradient, and let's just plug this straight in. Just see what happens. Okay, and then again, node wrangler switched on, so I'm going to do this. Let's move that across to there. Now then, memory serves. Oh yeah, we need transparency on there as well, and that is there. Okay, let's turn that to here. Tell you what, let's turn that all the way up. Just becomes a bit easier to see. There we go. So you want to manipulate it so it is 90, like that, and then you want to adjust so it's up and down, so a bit like that, and then we go and zoom this down. Like that. Now you can add an extra level of control, and obviously the easiest way of doing that is color ramp. Let's just move these over here. So it's helpful to have these because these are that one you can use pretty much anywhere using transparency. This is going to be fairly common. We want it all to be the same color. If you're so well inclined, you could have different colours for the various different aspects. I'm not sure why you'd want to do that, but feel free. It's entirely up to you. And then what we can do with this is, if I zoom these down, you can see here, I can sharpen that edge. Do that. You can add as much control over it as you like. Okay, so let's go to here. See what we're doing there, but we kind of want it to go up to about there. Let's drop that down a bit more. So if we look from the side, you can see how that's kind of gradiented out slightly. That's quite cool. I'll tell you what, let's just experiment a little bit. Bring that all the way to top. That's quite interesting. Let's just phase that down. You can spend forever looking around this. It doesn't seem to have much effect. Okay, well, let's just leave that as is. And what we want to do is you need to be all the way up. Yeah, that's, as I say, you could play with that to your heart's content. So that is your kind of gradient out in effect. So straight away, it's looking pretty good. In fact, let's just have a quick experiment whilst we're here. Let's make that 0, and let's just scale that up slightly. You can probably see that the nearer the top you get, there's less. It's becoming a little faded. To do that, if you're so, as I say, if you're so well inclined, you could have done it this way, but as I say, for the purpose of this, it's the whole thing 55, so you kind of grainy effect, and actually that's inadvertently made it quite cool doing it that way. So again, those are the values we're using. We are going to be adding a little bit of animation effect to this, so don't worry about it being perfect at the moment. So that is that effect done. Now, again, when you look at these in movies, you tend to find that bit down here is kind of glowing. So we're going to put a little bit of a glowing effect in this. And to do that, we're going to have another mix shader. Plan that one in there. And again, we're going to use these two controls. And instead, let's knock this one out. So we'll go black straight away. Plan that one into there. So straight away, you see this is what this is doing. Is you need something in there to control it. So we're going to go for another gradient. I'm going to plan that one into there. And then we're going to go for a Control T again. So I shouldn't really unlock that. And the reason why I'm not using the same ones over and you probably wonder, oh, why is he constantly creating these new ones? It's because each one of these is going to have something slightly different in. So we're going straight for 90 because we know that that is the angle that this needs to be set at. And then what we're going to do is drag this down to about here. That's object mode. Let's just do it in object mode. There we go. There. What we'll do is we'll cover it slightly, and then what we do is we do a color ramp. Again, a cooler ramp. There we go. Now then, this one's a bit more trickier. I found that, yeah, if you can start doing that with it, yeah, that's pretty good. I did find that B-Spline does do a slightly better job. There we go. What you can do is you can add other bits as well and just slightly adjust it. So, again, it's entirely personal preference how you attack this one. To me, that's looking pretty good. Maybe if I drop that one down to... nice phasing effect. So yeah, maybe that's somewhere in the middle there, and drag this down a little bit more. And you can maybe you get any ideas as to what else you can use stuff like this for. I mean, creating this kind of noisy effect and this kind of effect here it's not only for holograms. I've used this sort of technique before for backgrounds as well. So like a starry background on a plane where you have stars all over it, and at the bottom you could have like a phased blue, so it looks like a sunset, or dawn is breaking, and it's just a nice little effect to have. So it's quite a powerful technique that just to have that in there. So what we want to do now is we want to bring these two together, and the way to do that is by an add shader. So it goes into there, add the two together. There we go. So now that's nice and brought together. Now let's just have a play around with some of these settings so it kind of looks a bit more. It's a bit weird how you get that crease in there. Shouldn't really be there. This is where I can just. It's on the edge of something. I'm reasonably certain it's because we go to alpha blend. If you go to alpha clip, then the whole thing goes a bit crazy. I'd usually use alpha clip, but it just doesn't quite work. Alpha hash, see what alpha hash does. Doesn't work. Alpha blend does, but for whatever reason we have this crease here. It's rather annoying. But what we're going to do is we're going to animate this. So these little imperfections, they will phase out. So let's just have a quick play around for a few minutes and just see if we can get this to look a bit nicer. Come into its own, because what we're going to do is we're going to put something in the bottom here. Maybe in hindsight, actually, come to think of it, I deleted the faces. Maybe you shouldn't need to delete the faces. What I had in my original example was another component down here, and then one surface of that component was emitted to the same color. And maybe in hindsight we could have done with not necessarily wiping out that face, but doesn't really matter. You can also mucky around with colors if you like. Quite a cool one. So that is a very cool one. I like that. Look what we've got down here. That's pretty cool. So, well, let's go for that. Let's just see what that is in the image. Let's just see what that's actually produced. It's a bit obvious. I'm not overly keen on that colour actually in hindsight. Let's put it back to green. Okay. That is cool. Okay. So you can imagine you have your object in there and it We'll obviously we'll animate it. So let's do that now. Let's see. So let's see if we can just remind myself which way to do it. There we go. Sometimes, oops, I've gone and broken it. Good work. There you go. Let's just do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to very quickly animate this, and then we'll build our section around it, and you'll see just how to do that. So you go to Insert Keyframe. Now, make sure you've got this selected, and you've got that one selected. You only need single keyframe, so delete single keyframe. Delete wrong way. Insert single keyframe. So it only selects that one. And make sure, as I say, yeah, make sure that is selected. That's selected. Now, it seems to work best when you go back to layout mode, and it's in the graph editor. 2, 3. And then what you want to do is you want to go, it's one of these now. Which way around is it? Channel key. Oh, is that actually? It's already there. F-code modifier. Ah, okay. It was already there. I'm there looking to add it. So we want to add a modifier, and we want to add noise. And then it's a case of just manipulating this. So if I go to here, let's say we've done this. What essentially this is doing is it's replacing the value. So we had it set to like 0.9. And what it'll do is as time moves on, it'll just pick out these random noise things. So you can scale it, you can strengthen it. It's a bit too much. You don't want to go negative. There you go. You might want to go to about there. Set. Yeah. Okay. And let's just animate that very quickly. Okay, that's a bit too much. So let's go back to the editor. We don't want it to be quite as bad as that. It might be. You might get away with that. So let's just let that go. Yeah, maybe. Okay, it's one of those things you can manipulate, but okay. Then what we want to do is go back to the shader, and what we want to do is give this a bit of life, because if you just let that stay static, it's not going to look right. It's going to be this kind of static face. What you want to do is give it a bit of life. So let's go into, so it's the same trick again. Insert keyframe, back to your layout, timeline. Let's see. Oh, yes, you actually do need to select it. So you make sure that is selected. The number of times I've done this, not selected, and gone, why is it not picked out? It drives you insane. Again, it's a noise. Now, it's going to be up here because it's a very large value. Now then, I find this one you can really crank up. So it's not the strength. Oh, it is the strength. Do that. There we go. Just do that. Looking good. Looking good. Timeline it. Go. In hindsight, that other one is looking a bit too busy now. So let's go back to it. Zoom into here. Now you can apply noise to pretty much anything in this. So if you're so well inclined, it could have a different strength in your emission. Maybe that's a good one to do. Alternatively, you can have the color as noise, so it starts to jump around a bit. That's not tried that, but yeah, feel free to have a go. So let's go back to our layout. We zoom in. Okay, I've completely gaffed that. That's right, we're not looking at the right one. Graph editor. Oh, dear me. There we and we want to reduce that strength a little bit, so it's just a gentle flicker as opposed to anything particularly. You just want to give it a little bit of life. There we go. Okay, so that is essentially just your basics. So now that we've done that, let's come out of this. Well, let's minimize this even, and just very quickly, what we're going to do is we're going to add mesh. We're going to do a cylinder. It doesn't need to be that big. Bring it down. Let's see, down to Z. It's easier just to do it here. Okay. And yeah, this example is fine. You can spend however long you like modding this. You go to edit mode. One, and you know what? This come out of edit mode. We don't need to see this. Do we need to see this? You know what? It does help to see this. So we go see through. Yeah, we'll do it that way. Edit that face, and it's eye. Let's bring it in. There we go. Ooh, done that wrong, haven't I? Do that and then do eye. Oops, eye. There we go. That's a bit more like it. If you're too close to the center of your object and you hit eye, it extrude it. Yeah, if you're too close to your center and you hit I, you can't really scale it in properly. It just, you can go so far, and you basically have to be moving like an ant on your mouse to get it to scale in. So that's more like what we're doing, and hide that. And then we don't want to see through this anymore. Very quickly, what we're going to do is select that. We're going to add two materials, outer. Let's just go for something really simple. So glossy, hex code, CO, or 0 even. And what I want to do is let's put that to there, like that. So it's roughness. We just want a material. Then we go add emission. There's a couple of ways of doing this now. You can go into the shader tab. Just an emission. It doesn't need to be anything really special. You can do whatever you like down here. You can have something a bit more complicated, or you could just go crazy and have, you know, like a really bizarre pattern in there. I've tried that once or twice, and that's quite cool, but it's very time consuming. We're not really going to focus on that today. So what I did there was I grabbed the hex code for that green, and then we go back into the cylinder, change that, copy and paste, off you go. And then in edit mode, go back to that, select your face there, and then just assign. Oops. And assign the right material. There you go. And we probably want to crank this up to something like 50. So when we bring all this in together, object mode, Alt H. Let's just dial that down a little bit. It's a bit much, isn't it? $25. There we go, and that is pretty much under image. Okay, we need something else there. If you go to cycles, just to show and tell. So cycles mode doesn't need to be 1,000, just needs to be 100. Render that. Pretty much a very basic emitter. You can spend however long you like manipulating that. Let's try to smooth it. Let's just add an edge on it. That's how I do edges. Render that. You could do Actually, this is what I did for the example. I actually added something. I added a little point light in the middle. So let's go to layout. Go back to EEVEE. Actually, I made a mistake there. You can see there. I set it to CPU. It should have been GPU. A lot faster. Right then. So that light is on, and I still have that saved. 10 and kind of strength about 1,000. Let's scale that out. Radius 1.55. There we go. Let's put in a very quick plane as well, because that is just, there we go, and we'll make that pretty big. And actually we can just assign material there. Let's just look how that looks. And the image. Don't necessarily. Do we need that light? Let's hide that, see what that does. In fact, you know what? Let's just delete that. Don't really need that one. So render image. There we go. So let's delete that. Hide that and delete. Render again. Yeah, with my other example, obviously, it's spent a bit more time just building everything out. So that is essentially it. So let's just very quickly animate that and see how that looks. Okay, so a couple of tricks later, and this kind of render that we have. It's all done in EEVEE, so it's really very quick to render. You can see there that I've actually modified the ground a little bit. So if we go back to our Blender session. What I've done is I've taken the ground and all I've done is introduce this material effect to it. So it's a principled, made it a bit dark, and what I've done is put a Voronoi texture in with a bump, and it's created this pretty cool effect. You can vary that as well, big, small, make it a bit more random. You can really play around with it. So that's essentially that one. So if we go to something a bit more complex, so if I bring this one across here, here's one we made earlier. This is the more complicated version, and we just have a look. You'll see it's actually very similar. So let's just zoom in a bit more, maybe talk a little bit about what we've done. So if you want a copy of this, just let me know, and I'll try and find a way of sharing it. I might just grab a screenshot of this and share it on ArtStation, so you can really delve into it and have a look at what's going on here. So this is the actual emitter that we've got, and you can see there that I've spent a bit more time just fiddling with these controls over here. Some more controls down here, just slightly different. Got a red one, blue one, and a green one, and all I've done there is change the colour. It's also worth pointing out that each one of these has a light as well on the inside. That's because in EEVEE mode, that doesn't create the same effect, and we wanted a nice glow. So what I've done here is I've got a slightly larger, so it's 1.5 meters. These are fairly small to begin with, so it extends well beyond the cone, and just giving it the same color and really pumped up the value there. And obviously we just drop in Suzanne on the top, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And obviously spend a bit more time on the emitter itself. That has a little Tronest type effect in there. In fact, if you want that effect, have a look at the animated science fiction environment tutorial I've got, because I got into a bit more detail on how you actually create that. In fact, I'll add a link to that video in the top corner. It should be over here somewhere when we get around to that. But essentially, that's pretty much it. And the ground is same as before. I think I've just hooked up the metallic there. Just playing around with that. As I say, if you want, I can upload images of these to ArtStation and yeah, you can copy this to your heart's content. In fact, I'll see if there's a way I can upload this project file as well. I've been thinking about starting a Patreon. Don't know how people feel about that, but if there's a way I can share this stuff, then that's yeah, let's do that. So that's pretty much it for this this tutorial. So it's kind of an add-on to the last tutorial, as I say. Just adds to that effect, and yeah, play around with it. If you can get it to work and get it to work well, then please do share a link to your work. If you're running into any problems with this, then again, as I say, please do drop a note in my comments, and we'll see about see if I can answer any of your concerns or any issues straight off. If not, I'll just share a link to the images to these texture files, and that should make your life a bit easier. But yeah, absolutely, all you have to do really is play around with it and just see what weird and wonderful effects you can create, and you can find that there are just so many things you can do with it. So have a go, and if you do, let me know. So that pretty much wraps up this video. So thank you very much for your time again, and yeah, until next time, we've got another video coming out fairly shortly. As I said, this one was a bit of a request thing, so I felt, yeah, let's deal with this one first. But the next one coming up is going to be involving geometry nodes and shader nodes combinations. In fact, it's a rehash of another video that I've done, but that video was a time lapse, so it wasn't really a great tutorial. So that is coming out fairly soon. So until next time, thank you very much, and have a good weekend.